everyone, this is DJ. Today I have another interview for you. I think this will be a great piece of information for you. This is a retired service member named Don who has just recently finished going through the disability evaluation system. He has learned a great deal and has graciously submitted himself for an interview. I originally thought I would be asking him a lot of questions, but he came on the phone, or rather on Zoom, and just started talking, so I let him talk. I am going to let you see some of the back-end setup for this interview, because as soon as he came on the line, he just began speaking, and I let him go. So you'll see my attempt at setting things up, and as things progressed, I just let it progress naturally, and he went on from there. I did split this up into 2 parts because things got kind of long. So you'll see this in 2 parts as it goes, and you'll get to benefit from Don's experience and be able to learn from his experience and be able to benefit from your own knowledge as you go through such evaluations yourself. I do think that Don's experiences here are a great example of what you will see when you go through the disability evaluation on your own. You'll see that it's not exactly like what I describe in my videos. What I describe is the perfect world, and what Don experienced is what happens on the real life side of things when you're dealing with personnel who don't exactly know how things are supposed to be, so sometimes they're winging it. And it really helps, as you'll see from Don's perspective, when you have the benefit of knowledge on your side. Don met with me, or rather emailed me constantly throughout his ordeal to get advice and information, and it really helped him as he went through his evaluation experience. So I'm going to move on and let you see what Don experienced. Whenever there are times that the audio gets a little garbled or difficult to understand, I will put in subtitles so that you can better see what he or I was trying to say, and then you'll be able to better understand what was happening. So then you will have a better understanding of what was going on. And for those of you who are, of course, watching this on the video side, you'll see I have a different background today. I'm recording this at my favorite hangout, a cigar lounge. So you'll see that in the background here. This is a nice little place, and I do thank the proprietor for allowing me to record here today. All right, so let's move on to the interview with Don and see what he has to say. I will see you on the other side. Welcome.
You know, I was away from my phone most of the morning, having some sprinkler issues out here, and they don't use the same type of equipment that other states that I've lived in, and they crack very easily. So it's odd, very odd.
All righty. Well, you said you wanted to remain visibly anonymous, so how much of your name do you mind if I use? Just first name? Or do you want to go with a pseudonym?
Yes.
How would you like to do this?
No, just name Don's fine.
Okay. All right. Now,
you wrote these questions like you were going to be asking me these questions. I had intended on asking you questions, but kind of in a backwards way, like you already know the questions, so you're prepared for them.
Oh, there's how you outline it in your videos is precise. It's basically on, you have from birth to grave on how things are supposed to be ideally done in the world. But then when you're dealing with the unit, battalion, brigade, the medical staff, and everybody else in it, it just seems like they have their own set of rules and not the DOD or the Department of Army standards on how things are supposed to be done. And that there just seems like there's this, it's so large that it gets really convoluted. And I just found that everything you said to be absolutely true. And on the flip side, I found everything their actions that were doing, they were doing, was the totally opposite. And ironically enough, they were basically saying, well, where are you getting all this information? And I was like, well, I told them basically I can read. You know, and I mean, even though I'm an NCO or a retired NCO, doesn't mean I'm not educated. You know, just because they're officers and hold an MD or they went to West Point or whatever, it doesn't make them any more smarter than the average Joe. Right. So it's just, to me, it was just so difficult to understand what you were saying initially. But once I understood everything, then I found out how difficult and arduous the process is on the Army side. And in actuality, they wanted to do two different steps. They wanted to do a state side because of their National Guard, and then they wanted to do a federal side because it's the Army. And I was like, I didn't even heard of that before. So there was just a lot of ambiguities across the whole spectrum of, on the beginning, you know, from the point where you file a profile, the point you get injured to when it's all said and done, it is a total nightmare. When you outline it, if they were to just sit there and say, yes, you got this, check the box. You got this, check the box. We're going to do this and this, check the box. But it's not like that. And I, not only for myself, but for others who are going through the process, it was just fortunate that I was more demanding, if you will, than others. And I guess they just got tired of me, you know, because I was on them constantly. Whereas others just go through it and they get so upset, they just kind of like, well, I'm being screwed over again. Whereas I took, I was told one time, you have to be your own best advocate. So that's what I did. And if it wasn't for your guidance, it would have been fruitless. I would have never gotten anywhere. That was from the beginning of it, from the time I had surgery, to the time I went through the command, to when I got my profile, and when I went to the medical people, it was just a lot of, no one knew what was actually going on. Like I would arrive to, when I talked to my commander, for example, when I said, hey, sir, I need to get this done, and he looked right at me and goes, I don't know how to do that. Yeah. What do you mean you don't know how to do that? You're the commander. I've never been trained on that. Okay. Well, who does? We'll look into it. So, yeah, exactly. Right over their head. And it was getting to that point where everything, I mean, it's just a process on trying to figure out what needed to be done. And honestly, if it wasn't for the video on YouTube that I found on you, and listening to it, and then to top it off, you had an interview with a lady who I guess was a Pueblo. And even when I met the word, that was another example. When I said, well, you got to have a Pueblo, and they're like, a what? And so every time I mentioned things that you said in your illustrations, it was foreign to them. Honestly, I never did. And I met you back when I was back in Maryland, and I ended up retiring out in New Mexico because I had another issue that you helped me address, and you led me to the best person in the state that taught this stuff.
Yeah.
Yes, and if it wasn't for him, I would probably be sitting at 0 points with 23 years. So he was able to do it, and when I applied everything, my paperwork, it was dead on. So the state of New Mexico couldn't argue it, and understanding everything. And in fact, I remember prior to meeting you, and I can tell you this: I'm 100% service connected. Well, you know, and when I was in Maryland going through my PHA, the colonel up there that was giving my last part of my medical exam, he told me, he goes, "Hey, Sergeant, I know you're 100%. He goes, toughen it out, get that retirement, do whatever you can to get that retirement." And he goes, "I don't care what you do, crawl from the finish line, just don't give up. You know, you're so close." And I felt that he was back, he was covering me. He was, giving me some sound advice. Don't give in, don't quit. And I took that with me.
Mm-hmm.
But as age comes on and being in the infantry, trying to get promoted, being a good NCO to my soldiers, never missing a drill and everything, it was just that everything was catching up, and it was being more and more painful, hard to conduct business at that level. And in the back of my mind, I was keeping what that colonel had told me. In addition to that, after listening to what helped me was your video on the retirement, the points, and how to calculate it. So then I said, well, let me find out more about this guy. So I started reading, okay, what's this mean? Okay. And they don't, and it's funny because no one explains that in the unit. You can ask any soldier in any company that I served with, when you tell them all this stuff, they look at me like, how in the world do you know this stuff? And I told them, I found this, and I read it because you have, not only that, you have a web page, and I read the transcripts, everything you have in there, your podcast, and you cite everything. So when you say you could find this and this, I go to that, and there it is. I'm not a legal mind, but I can sit there and just basically understand it. So once I understood what was going on, you got me out of my head in the mud, so to speak. I was able to really, carry on and focus on what needed to be done. But the problem was that on the other side of the house, on the military side, either they know it and they don't want to deal with it, or they just don't know it.
Right.
And when back in November, I had back surgery. I have 2 broken vertebrae, and I was an airborne guy, and of course the VA and the military misdiagnosed me and everything. And then I went, yeah, and then I went through a specialist, and he says, no, you have 2 broken vertebrae, they're compressed spines. And actually, he was former Army doctor. He was a major, retired orthopedic, and he's like, this is a compression spine injury, and this is from jumping. And I was like, how did you know? And so that all led to my service connection. But I remember when I had my last surgery done, and I wanted to go on profile, and I was contemplating, do I really want to go through this whole mess of trying to get my medical retirement? And I knew it was going to be a process. And then when I sat down with my commander over here and told him what was going on, you could just tell that nothing was registering. He even told me, hey, Sergeant, I don't even know how to do an NOD. What's an NOD mean again? I forgot. A line of duty injury. And he goes, we're going to have to, again, research all this. Well, our PHA came up in January of 2020, and he called me in and says, look, I'm going to take you to the state surgeon. She's here. The colonel's here. Do you have all your documents? And I did. I had everything from the VA, from the Army, every little you can imagine. So I sat down with her, and she just looked at me and said, well, what do you want? And I go, what do I want? I'm trying to heal. That's what I'm trying to do, And she goes, well, we could put you on she just explained some of the profiles and everything. And that in itself is, unless you really understand what the profile means, you can actually cause more damage. And I was telling to my soldiers, you got to read the middle of the box, and it tells you what you actually can't do physically. Just because it says on the bottom you can't do PT doesn't mean you can't do your job. And that was the issue, is that I couldn't do my job. carrying a ruck, carrying a weapon, all the systems that you can imagine, and doing 12-mile ruck marches. I just couldn't do that physically anymore. So that colonel sat with me, and we were in the PHA, and then she threw me over to a captain. The captain looked at me like, what is it you want? And it's always, what did you want? It's not like, what can I help you with? And I was trying to explain to him, saying, look, I need a profile, and I need to get this corrected. And the first thing they say, well, one of the things I did not know in this state is that they have an automatic board if you're 80% or over. So if you're 80% or over, which I am, they start doing a medical process on you to not retain you anymore, which I didn't know. And I don't know if you're aware of that.
Every state does things differently.
Right. That's what I found. In Washington, when I became 100% in Washington, the civilians told me, they says, you can do whatever you want. You want to stay in, you can stay in. As long as you don't ETS, you can stay in. There's no problem here. Same thing in Maryland. When I got here, they had this thing. So they wanted all my medical documents. They were asking me, well, how do you have this? Why do you have this? And we were going through the whole spiel of stuff. And then the captain, she said, well, I'm going to have to, and everything was organized chronologically by time and date and everything. So everything was pointed towards. So I had tabs and everything saying this is this, this, and this. So she turned around and says, well, this is going to take a while. I'm going to have to upload it into their system, and then we're going to get back to me. So end result is that I ended up just getting a temporary profile, P2 initially. And then they upgraded to a P3, which automatically sent me to the DSH system. So when I got to that, they were asking more paperwork. And I was like, I don't have any more. I mean, I gave you, years worth. I gave him everything humanly possible. Everything from blood labs to everything. Well, I got assigned a caseworker in which she was really good. She's actually really jaded. She was an AGR med deck, started first class, I believe, and ended up becoming a contractor. She retired. And she was telling me, hey, you're going to have a big uphill battle with these people. And she was very nice. And then she said, after you assign a Pueblo, I'm no longer part of your case, but I just want to let you know, watch your 6 on this, because they're going to try to do this and this and this. So I said, okay. Whenever I had a question, I'd either contact you or I would contact her, and she was like, yeah, they're delaying it, they're doing this. And then they said, set me up an appointment to go up to the medical headquarters up in Albuquerque. Me and another soldier, he and I went up there, and because apparently his PHA was wrong, and they wanted to see me and question me. So I get up there, and it was a PHA day. And so I sit there, I'm sitting there in the hallway, and they brought me back into the office. There were 3 officers, 3 majors, 1 female, 2 male. And all of a sudden I was getting grilled. I was being questioned like I was being interrogated. And I was like, what's going on here? And they looked at me and, well, this is an excuse for you to get out. And I'm like, no, it's not. I was told to come here on this date, bring more documentations, which I have, and I gave it to your med technician, and that was it. And then that's when I even told you that they sent me down to this warrant officer, and she just went blasting on me about my medical, about my VA stuff. And that's when she said she wanted specific things, and I tried. She wanted orders from times when I was injured, and I tried to explain to her. I said the times I got injured, I was actually on active duty. So, for example, when you're on active duty, you know as well as I do, they don't send you on orders to the field.
Right.
Your units has its schedule, and you load up and you go do your 45-day mission, 90-day mission, however long it is. And I tried to explain that to the warrant officer. I said, ma'am, I was on active duty when this happened. We don't get orders to go to the field. She goes, oh, yes, you do. And we were literally fighting back and forth on this. And I said, no, that's impossible. So the only time I received orders is when I went to, if I went to airborne school or I went to an NCOES school or something like that, but never within a unit organization. You know, they never gave us orders. It's not like the National Guard where you get AT orders or school orders or orders for ADOS or whichever. I said, that's not how it works. But she was insistent. So she was like, well, I'm not doing anything until you give me those orders, and we're also going to have to do a re-examination from head to toe. And that can, she says, I can guarantee you, and I'll never forget what she told me. She goes, I guarantee you, you're not going to be 100%. And I was like, well, hold on here. That's when I was quite upset after that. And then this officer walked in and he said, well, I don't think you could tell him that. She goes, well, that's just the way the case is. You know, he can be rated 240%. Doesn't mean he's going to be 100%. And that's when I said, okay, I'm done here. And then right after that, it was all this issue about presenting them documents, resending documents, and then they were telling me, well, it could take another year, it could take 2 years. I was getting mixed signals. One person was telling me, oh no, it could happen in 30 days. You'll be out of this in 30 days. And then when I spoke to you, you said, you know, just be on the safe side, be ready to extend. And when I presented that to them, I said, hey, you're going to have to at least involuntarily extend me. They're like, no, we're not doing anything for you. So that's how the whole thing was going about. And then lastly, when I got everything addressed, I guess the colonel had called me. There was a sergeant, E6 type. He was a really nice guy. He was one of these sergeants that was always concerned about soldiers, not making sure they weren't being screwed off. He was like an advocate, but on a personal basis. So he was an AGR guy, and he would make sure that, hey, he would try to calm me down, or others as well who he has dealt with. And he would say, look, this is what I'll do. I'll talk to so-and-so on the side, stuff like that, explain to them what's going on with your case. And so the unit contacted me, and they said, well, this is the deal. We're going to send you this thing you're going to have to sign and send back. There was 3 options. One was just to do a non-PEB, one was to do a PEB, one was to do the NOE for 15 years. And so that's what I even spoke to you about that. And you said, no, do this. And I said, okay, roger that. And I checked the box, I sent it. And then they said, well, we don't have time to process it. And I said, well, you're going to have to extend me. And they didn't want to do that. Because first of all, I'll be holding up a slot for them. And they didn't know what to do with me after that. So it was going back and forth. They were saying, no, we need to do a non-PEB for you and whatnot. And I was like, no, this is what I'm going to do. I'll take the risk and everything, but I think I got enough documentation to support additional things that you guys are failing to do. Because I even explained to you when I went out with the SF mobilization, and how my AGR guy was with me and didn't want to do the line of duty. You know, and he was like, oh no, I thought it was for your feet, and in actuality it was for my back. Even that was even a mess itself, because the commander himself, he even said that he was aware when we got back that I had injured myself, and that the AGR turned around and said, no, I thought it was his feet and not his back. And then the SF guys, they knew it was my back, but since they're SF and you can't get in touch with them at all because they're all secret squirrels, and it was just tier 1 operators, you just can't. Hey, Master Sergeant, remember what you did to this to me? And they're like, they just don't acknowledge those things. Anyway, that was the process basically. So, and then I did get a call from this NCO, and he just about, I was getting to retire, and because he was doing some stuff on the back end for me, and because he would agree with me what you were telling me, and he said that's absolutely the case. That's absolutely the case. They need to do X, Y, and Z. So he would go back and tell him, hey man, you guys are doing the wrong thing. This soldier knows the process. It's not like he's an E1, E2 doesn't understand the process. Well, fortunately, and then I got a call, ironically enough, I got a call from we lost our AGR. They got fired, went somewhere else, and then they put a supply sergeant. She had called me because she was in charge of my packet. And she turned around and said, hey, why are you telling these soldiers to do X, Y, and Z? And I said, negative. I never told them that. What I did tell them is that they have options to look at. I said, if you're planning to stay in the Army, you're going to have to get rid of that P3. You're going to have to demonstrate to the Army that you're qualified to do the job. If not, they are going to automatically pursue this. That's what I told them. And they're like, well, you can't say that. And I'm like, someone has to tell them that, because then they're hurting themselves. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I with everything I gained from you, actually helped others with their situation, either being service connected or how to, go, whether to go to the excuse me, through the medical process for the medical board, and understanding what all IDES and all this stuff means, which these videos really, they explain in really good detail. And the good thing about it is I can go back if I didn't understand it and replay it again. It's just, okay, now I'm on point. I understood what he was saying right there, because it actually happened to me. But the problem is that when you say this, I've noticed that the Army does the opposite. Unless you have a strong advocate, or you have somebody who is understanding that what needs to be done. Because the feeling I got from them was that I was basically punking out of the Army to do something else, to say, oh, you're no longer, you feel like you're no longer a soldier, you're not worthy to be one of us, so we're going to do this to you. That's not the case. I'm now in my 50s, right? And I was out there doing infantry stuff with 20-year-olds, and I was older than my first sergeant, even in my commander. So they could never come back and say, well, you're punking out because you're not holding up your end. No, I did everything. I deployed with the SF. I came back with the SF. I did my stuff, everything that was possible. And there was nights where I went back in my bunk and I just cried myself to sleep because I was in so much pain. Whereas these other guys, they just skated out of duty and stuff. But I never missed the duty. And for the feeling I got was that, when a person goes on profile, they always give them that name about, okay, this guy's being a broke, what. So, right. So that's not me. If I can't physically do it, it's for a reason. I have from my L1 down to my S1 is completely gone. And I was out there in the mountains doing all that stuff, carrying all that equipment, pulling people out, doing crazy stuff like support by fires, hitting villages and stuff like that. And I would, literally, I was like, what the hell am I doing, man? I'm 50-something years old. And I got guys in their 30s and their 20s, and they're the ones who are whining all the time. But that's the feeling I got. Is that this is another soldier. He's just trying to negate the system and better himself, and that's not the case. I know, as anybody knows, your body will tell you, hey, you no longer can do this. And again, they weren't really, I remember when my commander told me, he goes, well, this is what I could do for you. Even though he didn't understand how to do the system, he goes, I could take you out of the infantry and put you in facilities. And I was like, wait a second, I don't want to go to facilities. I came in the Army back in 7 years ago to do what I love, not to do this other stuff. If I can't do it, I came in to be a soldier, not to be something else. And I knew the writing was on the wall that I physically couldn't do this. But the problem was that these officers, the people in the medical, they look at you like they're trying to skate. And the difference is I was in my 50s, and there's guys up in the medical section that they're in their 20s. Really? I just didn't, to me, it was like, I've done my time. I got the t-shirt, been there, done that. And I really have to say, if it wasn't for clicking on, Googling things and coming across your videos, I probably would have screwed myself a long time ago. And I'm glad you took the opportunity to hear me on all my pains and aches and got me through this. And all I want to do is just make sure that any other soldier, whether it be active duty reserves or the National Guard, whether it be the Army, the Air Force, the Marine Corps, the Navy branch, and I don't know how much difference their situation is or their regulations are. It's just that they got to protect themselves to get what they want. They're the ones putting themselves in jeopardy all the time they put that uniform on.
Well, when it comes down to it, the law is the same for everybody. techniques are a little different between branches, but the laws and the benefits are the same. So I can give the same advice to everybody and it's valid.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
That's a good thing. You know, the terminology might be different. You know, the Marines might call it one thing and the Air Force another, but you know, then you just need an interpreter.
Yeah. Well, you're the interpreter. when I was going through this whole thing, even the stuff you sent me from the DOD. In fact, that was another issue. Is that when I said, "Well, here's a DOD," and I remember the colonel looked at me like, "What is this?" And I said, "Well, DOD." She goes, I'm the state surgeon. I'm the head person, and I'm the one who facilitates this and this and this. And I was like, "Well, it's just like state law can't supersede federal law."
Yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah. You're a state surgeon, and this is what governs you.
Yes, and that was, I mean, those were the hurdles I was constantly going through months, and it was one of these, you know, we don't have this, we need this. Well, now we have this, now we need something more, and they were just thinking I just wanted to, you know, I had all these years, qualifying years, and they just couldn't just.
I half expected you to say when she said I'm the state surgeon, I half expected you to say, and I've never seen this.
Yeah, yeah. It was that person, that colonel. She was something else. And again, I always, you know, you get the feeling that they're never there for your best interest. You're just another person, another name. I remember the day that I was up there at Med Deck in Albuquerque, talking to these three officers, and they were, you know, questioning me as though I was like a criminal, and that's what really got me really upset. And I explained to them, I don't know whether it was, you know, because they saw me as 100%, and they're going, well, you're 100%, but yet you're here. I said, well, I tried to tell them, I said, the reason I'm here is because I wasn't 100% before getting here. I was already in the service, and that's when they told me, well, anybody who's 80% above, we look at very carefully to start, you know, medically discharging them. And I was like, well, I've already got, there's really much you can't do to me because I have everything that's, you know, qualifying me to get a retirement and whatnot. So I just felt that they were just either envious or jealous, or they have this feeling that, I don't know, it was just so hard to tail in inclusively what they were looking at on me. But I just got this feeling that they're the judge, trial, and executioner on all this. And I was just really mystified on saying, well, these are the steps we're going to take in order to get you there. And it just seemed like they were inventing steps, or they were taking away steps. And that's just, I mean, like you said, it could be different in other places. Some other places are really good. I know in Washington, it was a lot better than my experience in here, plus in Maryland. It was an arduous process. Yet it was painstaking and frustrating, to say the least. And now, I mean, I was surprised. I was expecting to last another year for all this to happen, and then when they contacted me and said, "No, we can get this done prior to your ETS date," and that was down to the point where I was wondering, okay, are they just saying that? Am I going to lose out here or whatever? I was about to go congressional for a second, or IG, because I was worried. But then they called me and said, no, you're good. You got everything. And I think they just fast tracked it because I was, again, every other day I was calling, inquiring, where we at on this, what needs to be done here. We have a time hack to worry about. And they said, don't worry about it.
Level, or you were calling Pueblo and at Army level?
I was calling the Pebble that they assigned me to. Where she was from exactly, I don't know. I never met her per se, just through emails and phone conversations.
Okay. Yeah, because once it got to the IDES level, state should have had, a scant amount of involvement.
Well, I just know there was that I mentioned at E6. He knows a lot of people, so he would tell me he would back channel things. So like when I was getting my when I was getting everything done, he would say, "Look, I'm gonna go talk to so and so. They're like the state surgeon. She was always TDY, one because of the COVID issue, and I thought that was going to be a problem as well, because everyone was working from home and with the COVID-19 issue, everyone was either somewhere in all this, and the state surgeon was going back and forth to DC, and I was like, oh my gosh, I was going to blow a gasket again. This is not going to be done. And he goes, no, he goes, I got your back. Don't worry about it, Sergeant. I got your back. And I think he knows, and it's really weird because he would go check. He goes, if you don't hear from me in 3 days, call me. And because everyone's working from home and everything, some people were coming in, some people were coming out. So he was able to, he knew the people that were, parts of the mechanism that he needed to talk to find out what was going on. So, like, because it was weird because he says you have your medical issue and then you have the retirement issue. So that he says it's just there are two here in this state. He says there are two different things. When MedDec does their portion, when it reaches G1 or G2, wherever it goes, they have to meet at the same time. So he was actually behind the scenes pushing this, doing this, and doing this. So he was instrumental in getting this, because he and I would have a lot of conversations offline, and he would explain to me, hey, this is unusual because you're so close to your ETS date, because you're 100%. And it's all this other stuff. So he was able to really, I have to give him credit. He was the one who was instrumental in getting everything done for me. And he in fact, he knows just like you, he knew all the correct places where everything had to be. And for a little E6 like himself, who just got promoted to E6, in fact, I was joking with him, and I said, man, you need the sergeant major of this thing, because you're the one who's always on tack on this, directly on, who to contact. He goes, look, I'll do anything for a soldier, and especially ones that already done their time. And I could tell that, because he met me one time, and he knew how much I was always with my Joes, working with my Joes. So he was like, no, I got you covered. Just give me time. And I have to give him kudos on that one, because he knew the right people. And then, the person that my case manager, she was good, because she was honest with me. She never said anything that she never blew smoke to say, well, this is what's going on. She was blunt. This is how it's going to be. This is what I'm doing for you, and we're going to get you through this process. And well, the last time I went up there, I drove for 4 hours just to be seen for 5 minutes.
Wow.
Yes. I drove for 4 hours just to be seen for 5 minutes. I walked in there, saw the medical people. They looked at me and said, okay, Sergeant, you're good to go. And I was like, you just call me?
Yeah, really. Couldn't we have done this by video?
Yeah, exactly. We drove up there, and I walked right in there, and they set me down, and this full board colonel just looked at me and says, you're good to go. Don't worry about it. You're done. And he goes, he told me, enjoy your retirement. And I said, thank you. And I drove literally from El Paso, Texas to Albuquerque, New Mexico, because I had to go to Las Cruces to grab a G ride. And I was in so much pain when I got there. Fortunately, I had a driver for me that took me up there in a G ride, and literally went to the headquarters, checked in. I probably sat down 10 minutes, went in there, spoke to him, and he just said, you're good to go, and shook my hand and said, enjoy your retirement. And I was like, okay. And I was kind of, puzzled, okay, enjoy your retirement. Are we, is there something, because like it's like a VA appointment. You're like, all right, is this guy really saying, is he really messed up and everything? But I think what it is, I had my ducks in order, and there was no question. There was absolutely no question of the validity of my circumstance. So I was waiting for the long haul. I was honestly, speculating, do I go to the state IG office or to NGB, or I go to congressional? I had all these things formulated in my mind if something were to happen, especially if it went beyond my ETS date. But it didn't. In fact, I think I sent you a picture of a packet I received about my retirement.
Yep.
Yeah, I got this. I got a phone call from the retirement section. Some master sergeant, he called me and said, "Hey, congratulations. I'm have to, usually we do this, but since it's a long drive for you, I'm going to send you everything. In fact, you're getting some other stuff for retirement. They wanted to give me a ceremony up there, and I said, I told them, I said, I appreciate it. I do. However, I just can't drive the distance. And the AGR guy, he sent me I think I sent it to you. They're going to give me 2 flags,
Yep.
a letter from the TAG and the governor and all that stuff. So I was quite shocked, to be honest, knowing that I thought I was just going to get. I was just happy to get my retirement packet. When I saw that, and I was like, yay. And that master sergeant said, once you get it, you give me a call. We're going to explain about how you get your pay and how you do your DEERS and everything. So that was just, for me, it was more like a dream. Wow, it's actually got through, and I actually made it. And I could be honest with you, when I was in Elk Ridge, Maryland, I would be sitting down, feeding my dogs, and watching your videos. All of them, every single one, everything from retirement to the TSP, if I remember correctly, the CPRS, everything. So I was digesting all this stuff. I had to watch it 2 or 3 times because, even you said, I'll give you the legal portion, then I'll give you the nuts and bolts portion. So I would, sit there and watch it again. My wife would look at me like, what are you watching? And I said, well, there's a lot of stuff I should have learned. I know about NCO stuff, but I should know this stuff as well. And it came in handy because I was afraid that for myself, that what if I don't make it? And you and I discussed this. You said, stay away from that 15 years, stay away from that 15-year. And I was always worried that, knowing the Army, they will undermine something and push you out one way or another, because I had that skepticism about the whole process. So to credit to yourself for making me think otherwise, I was like, okay, all right, I'll have faith in the system. And it actually worked. It actually they sped it up. So and that tells you it can be done. And I used to have phone calls with this sergeant, and I go, he told me, he goes, look, you wouldn't believe this, but even though your paperwork is good, you're not their priority. And I said, what do you mean? I said, I'm retiring. You would figure that'd be a priority. He goes, no, they have a list of, the guy who does the signatures for people who are either getting kicked out on one way or getting kicked out for drug abuse. He has to do. He only signs on Friday. And I go, well, where's mine in the whole thing? And he goes, you're basically, on this. He looked in the computer and saw my name, and he goes, you're right about here. And I was like, okay, well, what does that mean? Does it mean 6 months down the line? He goes, no, I got you. Don't worry about it. I'll get it done quickly. And which he did. Because I know guys who've ETS'd, and they're still waiting on I think it's the NGB 23 on their discharge, and they've been gone since February, and they still haven't received it. So for me, when the time I filed or went up there to the time, my last time up there, talking to the full board colonel that sat down with them and everything that been in between there, I was expecting a longer fight, an arduous process, fight to the tooth and nail. I believe that sergeant, but I'm like, is he providing me lip service just to do things? But no, he came from the infantry before he went to the medical side. So he goes, I am not going to let a soldier, get screwed over. And I said, hey, I'm the same way. And he saw that out of me, because I was always, making sure my guys were taken care of. And he was, And I told him, I said, man, I will buy you the biggest beer. If you drink beer, I'll buy you the biggest beer if you want. Because he was like an angel, if you will, for me. And whatever he did I can't tell you what all the stuff that he's done in the back end, but he says, don't worry about it. I got it covered. And I guess his influence helped.
That's great. When are your orders effective?
Actually, my orders were effective the day that if I had not re-enlisted, it would have been July 9th. So those orders,
How long ago?
July 9th this year. So just we're in September, July 9th, 2020.
What was your final percentage?
40.
Awesome. Well, get in contact with that staff sergeant. See if he can access your iPERMS record and download the whole thing to a CD for you.
Okay.
Because one thing I've noticed about the version you get from eBenefits is one, it gives you 2 of everything, or almost everything, but there are things missing.
Okay. So what are in those? Are they just the records that I gave them, or are there notes, or just like the VBA when they do their CMP stuff? Is that how it goes?
Well, I'm talking about the when you go through eBenefits and use it as a portal to DPRIS, to the Defense Personnel Records System, to get a copy of your iPERMS record.
Okay.
It gives you a double copy of most of what's there. At least that's what it's done for me. And there are a couple of items that were in the last version of iPERMS that I downloaded myself a little while before I retired from the National Guard, but are not there now.
Well, that's another thing. I went over to the base, the local military base here at Fort Bliss, and I had my everything in order. I went and you have to go through Rapids in order to get your appointment to get your ID card and stuff. But since I was on post anyways, my neighbor is a major in the reserves, and she was telling me, just go there. You're retired. They'll get it to you right away. You can just walk in and get it done. So I just as a side note, I went over there and I signed in to get my ID card. They looked at the paperwork. They see National Guard. They're like, people are actually retired out of the National Guard?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, seriously. They had 3 of them, 3 employees looking at this. And I said, I brought everything. I brought my packet, that says Soldier for Life and you're retired, congratulations. I didn't know what to bring, so I just brought everything. I even brought my RPAM with me just to say, hey, here you go. And they looked at me, the guy goes, I never seen this before. And the other lady goes, people retire out of the National Guard? And the other lady goes, and the third lady said, yeah. She goes, sir, you actually don't need to bring this paperwork. It should be uploaded. And I went, oh, it should? I said, okay. But they said, unfortunately, we can't give you your ID card today because it's a 4-hour wait for space available or a walk-in basis. So I was like, no, I'll just come back on my date. So that kind of felt me good because now my buddy, he goes, because my son bought me a retired hat, it says Army retired, and he goes, how come you don't wear it? I said, I'm not wearing it until it's the official day I receive that it says that you are actually retired. And now that I got it, I can be like any other person around this area that's a retiree, and I proudly wear it now, so I'm actually a retiree.
All right, so that was the first part of the interview with Don. And as you see, he has a great deal of real-world experience with the disability evaluation system, a great deal of information for those of you out there in the real world. And I do hope that you found his information worthwhile. Please tune in next time for the second part of my interview with Don. That will be coming up in about a week's time as I finish the editing for that part. We did digress into some more personal matters regarding Don, and of course I don't want those to be made public, so I'm going to cut those out just to maintain his privacy. Alright, so until next time, I do thank you for being part of this audience and remind you that if you would like to support my efforts at RC Retirement, you can do so at patreon.com/RCRetirement. You can support me at any amount per month, not per episode, per month. There are several pre-established rates of support, but of course you can create your own as well. And if you do choose a rate of $25 per month or more, you get a substantial 20% or more, 20% discount on any of the fee-for-services that I offer on my website, rcretirement.com. And be sure to check those out. I can assist you in a great many services that can benefit you as well. So please take a look at that. All right. Until next time, thank you for being a part of this audience and for spending your time with me. I greatly appreciate each and every one of you who chooses to spend your time here and benefit yourself and others. And always be sure to come over here and hit that subscribe button. That helps me out as well. Until next time, thank you for being here and thank you for your service. Have a great day.
If you liked what you heard on today's episode, then please go below and give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe to this channel. Also, please let other people know about this channel and the information it can provide for them. If you have questions or comments, then please have no qualms about posting them in the comments section below. Please remember the RC Retirement YouTube channel and the RC Retirement website are not recognized or endorsed by the Department of Defense, the Department of Veterans Affairs, or any other government agency. The information presented in these resources are for entertainment and informational purposes only. Also, the content of either of these resources should not be considered financial or legal advice. Please consult with your own legal counsel, accountant, or financial planner before making any decisions based on what you have learned here. As always, thank you for watching the RC Retirement YouTube channel.